We've reached the main speaker portion of our primary purpose speaker meeting. Our main speaker tonight is a solid, sober man of God. He's one of the good ones. 7-Eleven Dave, let's give it up. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Doc. I'm David, I'm alcoholic. And I love Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, my sobriety date's May 12, 1994. And that was one of the best days of my whole life. You know, I didn't know it then, but Alcoholics Anonymous has been the single best thing that's ever happened to me. It's changed my whole attitude and outlook on life. When I first got here and I heard that, I was thinking, what are they talking about? Remember, they're talking about the promises and stuff? So, I'm born in Las Vegas. I got a couple of brothers that were here. We were born in Southern Memorial Hospital. My mom was a drunk. Well, she was a fall down, pretty not a fall down drunk. She probably sat down before she fell down pretty much. And she died when I was a young kid. And I remember her being drunk and like, I'm gonna, for instance, like I came home one day from the swimming pool and she was out in the front yard, drunk on the front yard, sitting on the front yard, and the cops were there and the fire department was there and everybody was there and all the neighbors were there, and she's like, she had fell asleep with her cigarette drunk and caught the room on fire, the main room. And, you know, and I don't know if that made me an alcoholic, but it sure made me irritated. You know what I mean? It sure made me discontent, a little irritated, discontent, you know, and uncomfortable, you know. And I don't know if it made me an alcoholic, but I definitely know that it embarrassed me, you know, and I didn't really know what to do then. I was a young kid, I think I was 10 maybe at the time. And I have a couple younger brothers, you know. My dad and mom would fight a lot, you know, physically fight, you know. And so I have two younger brothers, Doug and Dan. My first drink was the Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill. And I liked the little taste of the wine, and I don't know how, you know, some people say, I know exactly how it made me feel and all that stuff. I don't really know exactly how it made me feel, but I know I liked it. You know what I mean? I liked how, where I was at with it when I started drinking. And I would always come home and my mom was always drunk. And I had we had my grandfather, he was kind of a nutcase, and he was this is kind of a long story. He was my grandfather, my dad's dad. And he was kind of senile a little bit. He had this cane, you know, and he used to use this cane on me and my two younger brothers. And we got so bad that I'd come home and I wouldn't want to go through the front door. So I kind of crawl through the window in my bedroom and go into my bedroom. And that way, this is kind of what our life was at first. It was kind of a little hectic, you know what I mean? And I remember the one time my brother Doug, my youngest, the middle brother, is Dave, Doug, Dan. There's three of us, the Marks brothers. My last name's the Marks brothers. And I remember the one time he reaches through the cane with the cane and grabs Doug, we were coming through the window, grabs him by the neck and pulls him through the window just like on TV and starts beating him with this cane. And I kind of pushed him away and it got in this big fight. And the reason I say this is, you know, it's what it was like and what happened and what it's like now. If you don't know what it was like, how are you gonna know what it's like now? You know? And it made me irritable, discontent, and restless. All this stuff, you know, and I'm a criminal, you know, I was a criminal, and I started using drugs when I was young. I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've used drugs, and I want to apologize if I offend anybody for talking about the drugs, you know. I could just say they're sedatives, okay? And so I remember I was like 12 years old, and I had a friend down the street named Mike Marquis. And his brother, my whole neighborhood was like a dope fiend neighborhood. You know, they called us the Parked Aliens. And it was a DI and Boulder Highway. And it was new houses and everybody used drugs and partied and had older kids in the neighborhood. And his older brother was a heroin addict. And he was like 11 years old and maybe I was 12 or something like that. And that was the first time that I injected, Dialaudid. It was the first time we injected Dialaudid. And I remember the first time I was out in front of this yard, out in the thing with him, and he started putting it in my arm, and I started getting these like pins and needles, and I was going, stop. And then the pins and needles stopped, and this is me. I go, go ahead, finish it. And And that's what happened. I remember I was sick for like 3 days after that, you know. And then it wasn't like I started shooting drugs the whole time from 12 years old. You know, it took a while before I got back into it. And I was drinking, I was using, and I started robbing, I started stealing, and I was doing minor consumption of alcohol, and I was doing burglaries, and I was doing stuff. And I remember I burglarized this house with these older kids in the neighborhood. And the only reason they had me is because I could fit through the doggy door and open the door up for them. So that's how, and then they ratted on me when they got caught. And I remember my dad, I was at 10, maybe 11 years old, my first felony conviction. They convicted me for it. I was 11. I remember the cops came and they handcuffed me. I'm a little kid, 10 years old. And maybe they're trying to teach me a lesson, you know? And my dad's going, you don't have to handcuff him. He's all protective. And he followed me down to juvenile. You know, the cop, they put me in the cop car, followed me down. I was in juvenile for about a whole 2 minutes, you know what I mean? And then he comes out and he's feeling guilty. And he goes, he wanted to take me to the movies. It was kind of weird. I remember he took me to the movies, and I know he felt bad and he felt guilty. And just being as a young kid already, I started to manipulate that, you know. And I manipulated him all the way up till he died, you know. And I used him, and I used my family, you know. And it wasn't good. And my mom was a real alcoholic, and I remember she would be throwing ashtrays through the windows, and my dad was throwing her through the window, and my younger life just wasn't that good. And I remember when I started using drugs and I started drinking, it started helping me. It was a solution for me. You know, it helped me with the irritability, restless, and discontent, and I felt a little bit at ease, you know. And, you know, when you're a young kid, you're not really working. You have to, then I was stealing and robbing. Long story short, I get up to about 18 years old, and I've got a whole history of arrest and stuff already. And I get arrested for burglary again. I'm driving this Eldorado. I have a girlfriend named Candy at the time. I'm 18 years old. Everybody's had a girlfriend named Candy. And she had a guy that had an Eldorado, a Cadillac Eldorado 68 convertible. And she had it, and we were driving it around. I'm all messed up, and I was on the run. I was on probation. I'm on the run. I've always been blonde. You know, I've always had, and back then I was really blonde. I had tan skin, and I remember I was on probation. I got a brilliant idea because I'm so smart. I forgot to tell you, I'm smart like Kelly, but smart. And I remember I dyed my hair black. My hair was black, but my eyebrows were all blonde. All my little things, everything was blonde. I looked ridiculous. And we get pulled over at Sunset Park. I'm at Sunset Park, and the cop knows me back then. And he goes, "Look who it is! It's John David Marshall." Still my whole name out. You know what I mean? And I get arrested. You know, I go, and I'm getting ready to go to prison this time. And you're in jail, and your hair's growing out. And by the time I get to jail, you know, my hair's growing. I got a white streak running down the top of my head. I got black things. I look ridiculous. The judge tells me, "Well, what happened to you? You know, what the hell's wrong with you? You know?" And he gives me 2 years in Nevada State Prison. Wino time compared to this criminal, you know. And so I go to prison the first time, and I remember when I was a young kid, my dad used to tell me all the time. My dad was a good man. He was a drinker, but he always tried to take care of us. He loved us. He never abused us. He was a good guy, you know. And I'm the one that took advantage of him. And he used to always say, he goes, "You keep using them drugs and them alcohol and smoking that weed, that's just going to progress into harder drugs. And you know, when you're a kid, your dad don't know, not your parents don't know. They can't tell you anything." You know, and he used to tell me, "The older you get, the smarter I'll get." He used to say to me all the time. I had no idea what he was talking about. Who listens to your parents? Nobody listens to them. So I'm sit down, we're behind glass in the old county jail, and he sits in there. It's the second time I seen him cry. The first time was when my mom passed. I'll get back to that. And he sat down in the chair across the glass, and we picked up the phone, and I could see tears in his eyes. And he says, and the first thing he says to me, "The older you get, the smarter I'll get." And I still really didn't realize what the hell he was talking about. I still didn't know what he was talking about until I got to AA years later. Because the older I get, the smarter you get in AA. So it's the same thing. I use the same principle. So I go to prison for a couple of years. And, I never graduated high school or anything like that, and never had a prom or any of all that stuff. But when I got on the yard finally, I'm saying, hey, these are all, I wondered where you guys went. It was like my high school reunion. I knew half the people in there. I knew all the people that were in prison. I knew these people that were in there. So, long story short, I had that girlfriend Candy bringing stuff up, and when you have drugs on the yard, you're pretty good, and I did 2 years in the Nevada State Prison, and I got released. And I remember I was still a dope fiend. I had no idea about Alcoholics Anonymous. I had no idea. I always knew there was a God. When I was a little kid, I did my Holy Communion, I did the catechism, I did all that stuff. And when they put the bread on my tongue, I remember I got sick because it was kind of gross and it made me get sick and I threw up. And my parents should have said right there, they should have locked me up there. That's what they should have. That's what they should have did, but they didn't. And so I'm going to back up a little bit. My mom was a chronic alcoholic and a real alcoholic. And when I was a young kid, I was young because she died when I was like 12 or 13 years old. She had cirrhosis of the liver. She was like 38 years old, and she passed. Bubba remembers when she died. And it was hard. It was kind of hard, but she was gone for a little while, before she passed. But she was a real alcoholic, and she passed. And that was all I did is just kept using the solution to make me more comfortable. And the solution was alcohol and drugs. And it just made me more and more comfortable. And when I got that, so then I got in trouble. I'm getting out of prison again. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I got to do something different here. I wasn't thinking about getting a job or anything. You got to quit burglarizing people. You're going to go to prison. I'm just a mental case. I don't know what I'm thinking. I wasn't thinking about getting a job. So I started robbing dope dealers, and because I didn't think they were breaking the law. So that wasn't a crime, I didn't think. And stuff like that, and I met a couple. I got into I wasn't doing prostitution, but I had some girls that were doing prostitution. Something I'm not proud of, but it was part of my story, and then I met this girl that's sober now, right? I met the first girl, and then I met another girl, but now she's in Alcoholics Anonymous with double-digit sobriety. So the thing about AA for me is it's been a miracle in my life. Both of my younger brothers ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous. Doug and Danny. Doug had 7 years sobriety when he passed in 2004, and Danny had 17 years sobriety when he passed in 2016. And life has been good to me. AA's been a big deal. So I started doing these little robberies and this stuff, and I ended up. Okay, so I met this girl, Michelle, the one that's sober now. I'm trying to get on to getting sober here, and I met this girl, and I loved this woman. I really cared about her, and I didn't want her doing the tricks, and I didn't want her doing that shit. So I get this Friday, maybe I'll go get a job. I got a job, and I was a painter, and we were doing cocaine together, and we were drinking constantly, and fighting like cats and dogs. And I remember I'm working, I'm making $700 a week. That's a lot of money back then, you know what I mean? And it's like 8 o'clock and I've already spent all my money on the dope, you know what I mean? I got like $5 or $3, and I remember I buying a Budweiser tall can. I buying a Budweiser tall can, I think I had $2, and you actually get change back then. And I put a couple quarters in the machine, and I didn't win anything. And I remember turning, and there's a drop box. It's called the drop. They used to have drop boxes till I came. And they had drop boxes. They had these drop boxes, and I kicked the bottom of the drop box in, and I reached in and I grabbed the drops, which is the money that you win, and I ran out of the 7-Eleven with the money, right? And there was like $800 in there. And I wasn't committing, like burglaries and shit like that. So, I was doing all my other stuff, that I didn't think was a crime. And so I hit that drop, and I remember I went, and I'm going in and out of the casinos, cashing all these quarters in, and buying it. And I remember spending all that money. I'm getting that spend. There's like $800 or $900 in change in there. And I remember thinking to myself, you're going to go back to prison if you keep doing this, right? And that's, and then I start doing that stuff again. I'm drinking. I start doing a little bit of cocaine. And I don't know if you've ever used cocaine or not, but this stuff, you're damn near do anything to get that stuff, to keep doing it. So I get a brilliant idea, because I'm smart like that, and I get this brilliant idea that I'm partying, I'm gonna get this sledgehammer, and I'm gonna walk into the 7-Eleven, and I'm gonna smash all the machines, all the drops with the hammer, and take all the money and run out. So I did that. I'm pouring bucket from bucket into bucket. I'm like 160 pounds a week. You know what I mean? I don't even know how I carried them. It must have been adrenaline or whatever. I don't know. And I robbed this place. So I robbed that, and we do that, and then this time I'm not thinking about am I going to go back to prison for doing this stuff? It didn't even enter my mind. It didn't even enter my mind. You know what entered my mind? That it was hard to swing the long handle on the sledgehammer. So some people rob stuff and they have a sawed-off shotgun. So I sawed off my sledgehammer. So I had a sawed-off sledgehammer. I'm the counter. That way I can swing it and break it, because I'm smart. I'm intelligent like that. And this is what happened before. This was me. And I hit a bunch of 7-Elevens, and they finally catch me. And you don't want to mess with the gambling in Las Vegas. You can murder somebody and get less time than messing with the gambling. So I get caught. I got a buddy of mine, Larry Hufford, that I've known my whole life, and he was there. He'd pretend like he had a gun while I'm busting the machines, and I got like 8 charges of armed robbery, and each one of them, the gun is 15 years and the robbery is 15 years. So I'm looking at a lot of time here, and I'm smart, and I'm thinking that Larry's gonna tell on me, because he's a rat, and I knew he was. So I get into court, and I remember asking the judge, I go, Your Honor, I want to make a deal. Let's make a deal or something. And I try to make a deal, and I end up making this deal where I pleaded guilty to 3 robberies, 15 years on each one. I ended up getting 2 7s running together and 1 7 running wild. That's not why I got the nickname 7-Eleven. They have the nickname 7-Eleven because I was in the 7-Eleven with the sledgehammer. And my sponsor gave me that nickname when I first got sober. And it stuck to me. I just don't know how it stayed with me all these years, and so I get 14 years in Nevada State Prison. 2 7s running together, 1 7 running wild. And I go in there, and I know what my problem is. It's drugs and alcohol. I know that's what it is. I knew that's what my problem was, drugs and alcohol. It wasn't me. I get up every morning, I brush my teeth, look in the mirror, before I go to the chow, and I had no idea about Alcoholics Anonymous. I had no idea that I needed God in my life. I had no idea. I thought that it was drugs and alcohol was my problem. So I said, remember, I'm at my high school reunion. I know a lot of people on the yard. I know people. Kelly was still there. Every time I went there, he was still there. And I couldn't see the problem. So I decided to myself, I'm not gonna use drugs in here. I'm not gonna party. I'm not gonna use drugs. I smoked 1 joint the whole time I was in there with this guy named Sid. 5 years. I did 5 calendar years on 14 years. And I remember getting out. So I get paroled. Finally get paroled over. I go up to Pioche fire camp. I'm up in fire camp. I got my 5 years. This is a trip right here. This stuff is you can't make this stuff up, So I'm up there after 5 years, 60 months. I'm getting ready to get out of prison, right? So I got my brother Danny, my youngest brother Danny, works at Nevada Power, and my girlfriend Michelle waited for me for 5 years, coming up to Pioche to get me from prison because I'm getting ready to go out. And guess what happens? He gets a DUI on the way up there, and she goes to some jailhouse or something. I don't know what happened, but my ride never showed. So I had to call this other girl, Christine, who has 23 years sobriety today. That just blows my mind that all these people that I know from the street are in Alcoholics Anonymous. It has to be God. What other explanation is there? So I call her up, and she comes up and picks me up. We go to the PO's jail, we pick up my DUI brother, and then we try to come back home. So I finally get home. I'm not using, I'm not drinking. I'm living with my DUI brother, and I'm hanging out at Buck's Tavern. You guys know where Buck's Tavern is? Huh? The Foxfire, Buck's Tavern, all them great places down there. They're nice places down there. You know, and I remember I was in there. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't using, right? And I'm playing pool Wednesday night with my brother Danny. And I looked at it because I was tired of drinking orange juice. I was drinking way too much orange juice. And I said, get me a Budweiser. And this is 5 years later. And I'm going to back up. Before I went to prison, there was this boat, right, with all these dope fiends and all these people in it, right, rowing in the water, rowing in a spot, rowing away. And I get out and I go to prison. And 5 years later, I asked for that Budweiser from my brother. And I drink that Budweiser, and I look over, and there's that damn boat. 5 years later, in the same spot, going nowhere. And what do? I jump right in it. Busting machines that night. I was busting machines, the same shit I was doing 5 years later. I was busting machines that night, doing dope that night. And thank God for my brother Doug was in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God he was in Alcoholics Anonymous. I remember I'm at the apartment with my brother Danny. I'm out and I'm using drugs and he has this pool stick. This is so weird, man. I mean, he has this really nice pool stick, like $2,000 pool stick, hanging on the wall in a case. And I take the case out. Take the stick out, put the case back on the wall. This is my last day. I go to Foxfire because I'm living at Stewart and Nellis at them apartments right there. I go to Foxfire, sell it for $90 or something. I get on the bus. I'm happy because I got $90. I'm going to the dope fiend's house. I go down to this motel. I'm Lake Mead and Nellis down there, right past there on the right. Nice little spot. And I'm in there and I'm smoking crack with this black lady and drinking, what did she was drinking? Blackberry brandy. Yeah, God, that shit was nasty. And I remember it was going down. I remember I was getting ready. All my shit was running out, so she was done. I was done sharing. So I get on the bus. I'm on the bus, and I got them in my mouth because that's where I think I'm going to get away with anything. I got them in, and I'm riding the bus telling the people not to pull the handle on the bus so I can get the steward without the bus stopping. And I'm walking up there back and forth telling people, and they're like, I'm like a rabid dog. I got foam coming out. I'm all like, I'm a crazy man. This is the truth. This is not, I ain't making this stuff up. And I get the steward. I go to the apartment. I'm in there. I smoke up the last. I drink up the last of the liquor that was there and smoked up the cigarettes. And I got on, it was the second time. It was the first time I went to a detox for a minute. I only stayed there for a couple, 3 days, and I was off running. I wasn't ready. But then this is the second time that I went back. And I got on my knees and I asked God for help. It was May 11th, 1994. And it had to be him because he was the only one I asked that day. I mean, I got on my knees and I said, God, I need your help. I can't do this anymore. And I called my brother Doug, and he was in AA. He was going to the Misfits. He called up this girl, and they used to call her bitch on wheels, that stayed at the detox, and he got me into detox. So I'm in detox, and the first time I was in there, I was looking for a girlfriend on the other side of the thing. You know what I mean? I'm all sucked up. Oh yeah, I got plenty to offer. I hawked my truck. I stole all my tools. I ain't got no job. I got a lot to offer, you know. And the second time I was in there, people from AA were coming in, Alcoholics Anonymous. They were coming in their little group thing, and there wasn't a lot of people in there. And I started to listen. I opened my ears up a little bit, and I was listening. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted, you know what I mean? But I know I didn't want that anymore. You know what I mean? I was done doing that. And I remember this guy, Dave, a big, tall guy. And he was like the first dude I ever told that I was scared, because I was pretty much too stupid to be scared of anything. You know what I mean? I'd run into a gunfight with a knife, like a dumbass, you know what I mean? And I remember asking him, I go, I'm afraid to leave here. I don't think I can do it and not get loaded, not drink. So he hooked me up to this place called the Ark House, Bob Darrell's house. It was a thing on Pecos and Owens, right in my perfect area where I hang out, you know, in my faith. And I remember going there, and he got me in there, and people were coming into AA. And I remember they were talking about burning bridges. You know, they were talking about getting bridges burned, you know, making amends, taking care of things, you know what I mean? And you know, admitting to your innermost self that you're an alcoholic and things like that. And I was thinking, they said, you got to get a sponsor. So there's this little heroin addict dude that used to come, because there wasn't a lot of people. I didn't really have a lot to choose from. You know, I mean, there's a few people came in here, and I related to this little heroin addict dude. His name was Jim. He was just a little dude, but he did little drugs, and it kind of related to him a little bit. And I asked him to be my sponsor, and I tried to and he helped me surrender. He helped me turn my will and my life over to the care of God. He helped me get in my first 4-step. You know, and I remember, I admitted to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic and that my life's unmanageable. And, you know, and I came to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. You know, then I made the decision. Then I started writing this thing out. So I had to have him write it out. So I have it write it out. And at that time, I'm getting out of because I remember I was in that recovery house, and I didn't want to burn any bridges. That's the one thing that stuck with me, because my whole life was burnt bridges behind me. You know, my whole life was just burnt bridges. And I said, I ain't leaving this place owing them nothing. I don't want any more burnt bridges. And I left there without no burnt bridges. Everything was clean, cool. And then I went to my brother's place, and I had my 4-step all rolled out. And it was a dangerous spot, because they say you need to get onto your 5th step because it's dangerous. So I have it under the nightstand, and I'm working. I'm framing back then for West Core Framing in the middle of August. And I'm working for a guy that's in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the owner of the thing was connected to AA, so I could kind of manipulate. I was still manipulating people. I would call them, I got to work on myself today. I need the day off. You know what I mean? And I call him up and I said that, you know, and I call up my sponsor. I go, this stuff's driving me crazy. I need you to come over for my 5th step. And he goes, put a pot of coffee on. It's 4:30 in the morning. You know what I mean? I had my 5th step burnt, smoldering under that nightstand. It was just smoldering under that, you know. And he comes over. My brother Danny went working for Nevada Power. That's a long story. And yeah, I was there. And so he comes over, and I go, I don't know where to start, man. I had a whole bunch of things written out on there, you know, a whole bunch of meaningless stuff. Most of the stuff was my fault. You know, I mean, most of it was my fault. Most of it was meaningless. But you know how you just write that stuff down for your first one. So I don't even know where to start with this. So he tells me this story, this thing. He goes, let me start by sharing a little something that happened to me. And he shares this weird stuff that it was kind of weird, kind of threw me off a little bit, that he shared, and it threw me off a little bit. And what it did was it freed me up to dump that. And it wasn't like, you know, the 4-step and the 5th step, wasn't like I come walking down Mount Sinai with tablets and stuff, and I'm feeling, but what it made me was tired. You know what I mean? And it made me feel a little bit of relief. You know, just a little bit, because it wasn't thorough, you know? And then I didn't really go on from there, because when he shared that stuff to me, it turned me off to him, and I dumped that. Thank God. I think that's why I could stay sober, because I dumped that little bit with him, you know. And I was a year sober still, and I was going to meetings, and I just got out of prison. I was 60 months in prison. You know, there's all these women in AA, you know. I had a little more than a desire to stop drinking, you know what I'm saying? And I started following my thing right over a cliff. That's exactly what I did. You know what I mean? I caused wreckage in sobriety. And I did stuff that I shouldn't have been doing in sobriety. And it was a couple years sober. I'm 2 years sober. And I'm chairing meetings, and I'm doing stuff, and I'm creating wreckage in sobriety. And I remember the Misfits was a big, giant meeting back then. There was 100 people in there, 90 people. And they're all crazy nut people. It's just a nutcase meeting. And I remember saying, there's something wrong with me. I shared the meeting, and the whole meeting sounded like it was all how screwed up I was. That's what everybody sounded like they were saying. Yeah, you are screwed up. You're a bad way. You need some help. You know what I mean? And that's what it sounded like. And I haven't had talked to my sponsor in months, but there was this guy in there. His name was Paul Connors, and he saved my life. This is the dude, I call him my favorite, best sponsor I ever had. And he's passed now, but he was the one that saved my life. Got me into the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, helped me clean this wreckage, helped me make amends, helped me find a higher power greater than myself that I call God, you know. And I remember the first time I did it, the first steps with Jim, I did the fourth and the fifth with him, but I kept the garbage can. You know, you get rid of all that garbage. That's what we're looking for. We're trying to clear the wreckage between me and God. I'm trying to get rid of all this wreckage, but I kept the garbage can. You know what I mean? And in AA, I was doing stuff that more wreckage, and I kept filling that can. And by the time I was sitting in that meeting, I had a garbage can full of crap, resentment and stuff. So the second time I did it, I got rid of the can. That's why the 10th step comes in. You know what I mean? You do it daily on the 10th. You know what I mean? You keep your house clean on a daily basis. You don't need a garbage can. You know, and it ain't like that. So what is this? I got 20 minutes left. Is that right? Okay. It isn't like I'm the great guru or anything like that. You know, I want to say something. Today I was doing some medical stuff, and I'm in that thing, and I'm thinking I had a shirt on from the Oasis, and it says "Get in the truck," and it's a recovery house. And the little girl, a real young girl, comes up. She goes, "I love your shirt." And I go, "Yeah, well, it's a place for alcoholics and addicts to get better." And she lit up. I mean, her face just lit up. She goes, "My dad has 10 years sobriety." You could just see how proud she was of him. And it really made me feel good. You know what I mean? I mean, it just goes to show that we're not the only people that Alcoholics Anonymous help. It's like dropping a pebble in a pond. It just helps people, man. I mean, it just made me feel good. Almost gave me tears, man. You know, and today my life is really good. You know, I had to clean up that wreckage, you know, that I was doing in sobriety. You know, I cleaned it up, you know, and then 2004, I had 10 years sobriety. My brother Doug was the one that was in AA when I first got here. You know, he had 7 years sobriety. There was a time where I couldn't give him my number, even though he got me into AA. Then he went back out, heroin addict. He'd always call me up with stupid shit like, "Here, I need $13. Or I need $7. You know, I mean, enough to get a bag or whatever." It was always a weird number, you know what I mean? And they're always telling me, "Don't enable him." I'd jump in my truck, go take it to him. I wanted him to just get to AA as fast as he can, because he knew what he had to do, you know, and I would take it to him. You know, and he finally made it back to Alcoholics Anonymous after a trip to prison. And he got married in AA, and he got sick, and he had HIV. He had hepatitis C, and he used to have to eat a handful of pills every day. I mean, a handful. I mean, a handful. And you know what happens to him? He gets cancer of the lymph nodes and dies. I mean, in 2004, I had 10 years sobriety. I mean, that hurt. I mean, it hurt. And the thing that happened with me is that the people at my home group and the people all around me just surrounded me. You know, like I fell, you know what I mean? And they surrounded me and picked me up and kept me, supported me. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous does. We support each other, we take care of each other, and we try to help each other. And I got over that after a while, you know, and I've been in some good relationships in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in a relationship for 17 years with this girl, and we broke up about 4 years ago. And right before we broke up in 2004, 2016, I'm sorry, my brother Danny, the youngest. And I used to be a terrible brother. I would wake my brothers up with a pump gun. You know, in the middle of the night, like I watched way too much Rifleman or something. I don't know what was wrong. There was something wrong with me mentally. And I would poke them with the gun. I said, "Get up," and I'd have pumps on it. And I'd make them run back and forth in the backyard. and I would shoot them anyway. I mean, I don't even know why they would even run. I mean, just shoot me, you know. And I love them guys. You can imagine how I treated the other people around, you know. And Danny, my brother, Danny, he was a great soul, man. He was the best man I ever knew, you know. And we played golf, we played softball, we worked together. And I remember when he first came in, because I was praying for him to come into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And there ain't nothing you can do but pray for them, and they have to be ready to come in. And he was a speed demon. This speed stuff is some brutal shit, you know. And finally came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and he was always like chewing on his tongue, it seemed like, always. Even though he wasn't high, it was just a habit that you build up. And he's chewing, he's working with me, and we're working daily and daily. He's chewing, and he's driving me nuts. You know what I mean? And I go, Danny, give me a piece of gum. He goes, I ain't got no gum. I go, well, what the hell are you chewing on that? What are you chewing on? You know? And finally it went away. You know what I mean? Finally that habit went away, and he stayed with me. And we built a good relationship together, you know. So one day, his girlfriend calls me. He goes, there's something wrong with Danny. Because he just got back from Japan. You know what I mean? He was doing the chopsticks. He loved it, proud of himself because he could do chopsticks and shit. So she called him up. There's something wrong with Danny. He can't do the chopsticks. He's talking kind of weird. So we go to the hospital, and she's the head nurse lady. She's like a head nurse, work for a radiation place. And she gets the report, and he has a brain tumor. And it's the gray matter. There's another name for it. It's the worst cancer you can get, and it's pretty much terminal. And they tortured him for 8 months, and then he passed. And I remember how bad that it was. It was a tough part of my whole life, you know. And I remember when he was sick for that 8 months. And I remember I had to take him down. He had to have a cap. They did radiation through the top of his head. They did chemo. They did all kinds of stuff. They just tortured the poor man. And I remember I'd be reading around and praying, trusting, because I believe in God. I trust God. I know God's in my life. And I don't listen to the Christian channel all the time, but back then I would listen to the Christian channel. Listen to the Christian channel, praying all the time. And I'm thinking, God, you can move mountains. I know you can save him. And in my heart, I believed that he could. And he died anyway. And I get on my knees a long time ago when I was 3 months sober or something like that. Maybe 6 months sober. I remember laying on my back, because you said, you got to pray at night. And I remember praying, oh, thanks, God, keeping me sober, laying on my back in my bed. And I'm thinking about, I wonder if the neighbors on their knees, asking God, thanking God for the day and thanking God for being sober or whatever, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, and if I'm God and I'm looking down, I see one guy can't even roll off and get humble on his knees, who are you going to help? You know what I mean? I rolled off on my knees. I've been on my knees 30 years. You know, every night I get on my knees and I ask God, have I hurt anyone? Is my house clean? You know what I mean? And I keep my can. I don't have a can, so I have to keep my house clean. I have no place to throw trash. You know, so it took a while to get back to where I am today with God. Because, you know, I still got on my knees. I still thank God for being sober, and I thank God for my life. You know, like I said, AA is the most single thing, the best thing that's ever happened to me my whole entire life. If it wouldn't have happened, I know for sure I'd be in prison. I know for sure. You know, that's what they say. They say it's inevitable. You die, you go to prison, or you go to a nut house. That's just the way it is. And if you're a real alcoholic and you're new in here, that's it. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. You have to just look at it like that. You know, and I finally got back on the same page with God. I'm back on the page, and I had to write about it. I had to get into the paperwork and put it on paper. And the way I looked at it with my brother was that AA gave me all the time that we had together in Alcoholics Anonymous, the 17 years that he had sober. You know what I mean? And we became friends, and we went to funerals together. We went to weddings together. We lived life as brothers. You know, we played golf. He was a golf nut like Sergio. He was standing there standing over the ball, just hit the damn thing for Christ's sake. I mean, he'd drive me nuts, you know. And he'd call me up, and we'd go golfing all the time. And I really miss him, you know. But I got some friends in Alcoholics Anonymous that you don't even. I mean, we get these lifetime friends in here, like Scotty, my friend Scott. When I first got sober, I tore the whole back of his house out. I mean, I was just starting this little business. I do a little remodeling, and I was just starting my business out. And he goes, yeah, he had a patio cover on an enclosure hanging on the fascia board of his house. It wasn't even supported, it was just hanging on the fascia board. So I go, I got to put a header in. I don't think he knew what I was talking about. And he comes home, and I got the whole back wall supported up with a big header in there. The whole wall's gone. He's like freaking out, you know. It didn't fall. We made it, you know, and it's so weird, man. I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous has been a miracle in my life. Like my truck broke down. I had this old GMC truck. I'm maybe 2 years sober, maybe, right? Two and a half years sober. And Scotty's always been good with new people. He's a great man. He always takes care of people, and he's a good man. And I remember my truck broke down. I'm panicking. I don't have no truck. He goes, come on, I know a guy. That's how he says it. I know a guy. So we go to Toyota. He knows the head guy, the guy on the commercial. Yeah, right? The head guy. So I'm in there, and I'm panicking because I leave my wallet in my truck. Right? So I have no ID. But he tells me, oh, he's good. They let me drive off with a brand new truck with no ID. And I had to come back 2 days later and give him all the information. And I was for sure they would come take that truck. Yeah, I mean, it's your first truck. You don't know nothing about credit scores or nothing like that. You know, and today that's what we do. Me and Kelly mess around with our credit scores. You know what I mean? Hey, what do you got, 807? Yeah, I'm 815 now, so I'm good. And that's so weird because we were convicts. It's got to be a miracle in here, right? You know, I'm kind of rambling right now. I don't know how much. Keep going. I'm rambling. My life is really good because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to tell you what it's like now. You know, I sponsor some people. I got this kid that I'm too close to. You know what I mean? He's almost killed himself a couple times now. And that fentanyl, you know, young shit, they fucking kids. And I just talked to him again today. All you can do is pray, man. You know what I mean? If I could have choked AA into my brother, he would have been sober a long time before he got here. Or choke, you know what I mean? But I mean, we grow these relationships in here with people. And I got this big old giant dude Jason, he's a really good man. And I just love to see it when the lights come on. You know what I mean? When they I don't know about you, but when I seen that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, it gave me a little bit of hope. And then when you see these people see that light's starting to open up and flashing up, and they see that there's a little bit of hope in here, it's just a miracle. AA's been really good to me, even when it's bad. AA's good to me, even when it's bad. When my brothers were dying, AA was good. I had people supporting me. When everything in my life is happening here. So I'm not a perfect AA guru. I got some medical stuff going on right now, but it's not even really that serious. But I made it serious. Last night I made it serious. I'm in chemo already. You know what I mean? I ain't even been diagnosed or nothing, you know what I'm saying? I still got to get a test, you know? So I don't know. That's what happens to me, but I just want to thank everybody for letting me share tonight. Kelly, thanks for showing up, and I appreciate you guys. Thanks for letting me share.